Vibish do fellow reloaders. This is Jace with not your common ammo, and things are a little different now. Yes, I've got my reloading bench is all set up and ready to go. Like I said, braced underneath, braced underneath, braced underneath. I put two on this end, and we got one over here, and it's braced fairly. I mean, I can put my weight on this and it doesn't give any at all. So here we are. Now I am left-handed, so I've got marks for where my reloading press is going to go, and here's the hardware for that. Today we're still waiting. I found a place for the powder. I also found a place for the reloading dies, which go along with this, and for these up here. Now, today we're going to be talking ballistics. Okay, these are already spent cases. These got the primers in them still, and you can tell they've been fired. That's right. And this is a 243. And I'm going to go over the physics of what's happening when you actually pull the trigger. And this will be full of powder, okay? Well, at least 43 grains, okay? And your bullet's going to be at that end. From the time that you actually pull the trigger, you got tenths of a second, and it's going to come up and it's going to hit this primer. This primer, you got to remember, primers require just a little bit of pressure, a hit, and they explode, okay? That explosion, that burn, sets off the powders inside. Now, if you have a handgun, you want a faster burning powder. Why? Because your barrel is shorter. The shorter the barrel, the faster you want it to go. Okay? You want it to burn fast and create a lot of gas. Okay? With a barrel that's longer, you want it to burn slow and produce a lot of gas. Okay? Velocity. There's a certain point where velocity trades with accuracy. Okay? Now, the primer ignites the powder. This whole thing doesn't burn. This whole thing, up to here, doesn't burn all at once. This is being pushed forward. Everything is being pushed that way because the gases and the burnt propellant are making their way this way, down your casing. So it's pushing everything out. I showed you a graphic last episode. And that graphic was of a 155 round. It's a 155 millimeter howitzer round. Now, a howitzer round, and those for like 308, 243, just about the same. The only difference is on a 155 round, there is a brass ring at the back. That brass ring just rotates, and all that's to do is to keep the gases exactly where they're at. It makes contact with the rifling, but it spins with it. Okay, it spins with the rifling, so it keeps the gases where they're supposed to be, and it helps push the round out of the muzzle. Okay. Now with your 243, 308, 300, 307s, 9 mils. It all is the same. The only difference is the tips are a little bit blunter or maybe a little bit sharper. The longer you go, the sharper you want those to be, because it acts like a wing to fly in the air. Now, boat tail. A lot of people are like, well, boat tail or flat tail. Me, I prefer boat tail. Why? Because the way the it tapers back. You get that pressure back there, and that pressure kind of helps hold the bullet into place. If you see a boat tail, you'll understand what I'm saying, because that boat tail comes back just a bit, and that pressure is going to come over the top of around the top and around the bottom and hold that into place. Okay, which is what you want. Now, the only part that's actually touching your rifling is not the ogive. The ogive is just the part that comes up. The barrelet is the only part that is touching your rifling. It should be the only part that is touching your rifling. You want minimal contact on your bullet to your rifling. And that barrelet, you've got hundreds of thousands of inches. The ogive doesn't. It's just where it comes up. The barrelet is where it touches. And then if you notice, it'll drop back just a little bit. After the barrelet, it drops down just a bit. It kind of tapers back. You don't want a whole lot of contact between your rifling and your bullet, because the more contact you got, the more you've got to push. The more force you've got to put on that to get it to the end of your muzzle. Now, as it goes down, the propellant is still burning. Okay? Now, this is where your percentage of how efficient your powder is. If you look at the end of your barrel after you fire and you still got powder burning on the way out, that is going to affect, in a very small way, it is going to affect your trajectory. It is going to affect where you're aiming at. Okay? The other thing that affects aiming is you. Breathing and respiratory are the same thing, but your heart rate, your jittery, if you've got a little tick, there's certain ways. Army snipers in general, know how to mitigate themselves out of the equation for a very long shot. That is to control their breathing, shoot on exhale, hold your breath on the exhale, squeeze trigger. They drill that into you. Okay? Now, I'm going to mitigate myself out of that equation. Okay? So, now, your bullet reaches the end of your weapon, and it's on its free flight. There's a reason why it looks like a airplane wing. If you look from the side, it looks kind of like an airplane wing. Symmetrical. Okay? You want the same force on top as on bottom. With an airplane wing, you want more force on the bottom to push up. So on a bullet, you want the top to be like the bottom, so it keeps that pressure the same. Now there's another thing that we have to account for. The faster a bullet goes, the more fluid the air is going to act like. Okay? That's because the faster you go, the thicker air gets, and the more it's going to resist you and push back against you. The more streamlined you are, you mitigate that. You bring that down. Okay? That's why bullets are shaped the way they are. But they still find resistance. If you fire a bullet and get a chance to actually pull it out of like ballistic shell the very second that it hits, okay, you'll find the tip is very hot. Why? Because it is not because of the powder. The powder is burning from behind. It's because it's pushing through the air so hard that it's heating it up. Okay, you'll see the shock waves before you see the bullet. Okay. Now, archers got this idea, and I'm going to go into archery for just a little bit here. Archers, when they shoot, they make an arc, and the last half of the distance that they are shooting, the arrow is literally falling into the target. Okay? They shoot, they get their speed and their distance, and then halfway through, their speed's kind of diminishing. So now they're going to use gravity to close the rest of that distance and bring it down into their target. Okay? This is the same thing with shooting a gun. You may be thinking you're shooting straight, but you want your bullet to go up and then come back down. Okay? So at 300 meters, at 300 yards, if you sight your rifle in at 300 yards, it is going to be the same height at your muzzle as it is at 300 yards. It's going to go up and come back down. You want your bullet to fall into your target, okay? Unless you're really close. If you're really close, it's not going to curve all that much. You want to go right straight in, okay? Which at closer, you're going to be using a handgun. Okay, that's why handguns, faster powder, shorter barrel. Okay, because you're going to be close. With rifles, longer distances, you want your bullet to fall into your target. Okay, now what you want a bullet to do is enter clean and mushroom out. The more it mushrooms out, the more damage it's going to cause. That's why the 22 is such a dangerous weapon, because the bullet goes in and it's got a very small hole. But when it hits something, it just ricochets around like bone. If it hits bone, it's going to ricochet around, or it's just going to shatter. If it shatters, pieces are going everywhere. It's like shrapnel. It's all over the place. 22 rounds are notorious for that. Small hole, which literally can seal up. You can be shot by a 22, know that you've been shot, and point to it, this is where I was shot, and a medical professional will have to go digging for it, because they can't see where the entry wound is, because your body will literally seal it back up. And you have to do like, I think it's an ultrasound or an x-ray, and that's ballistics. Now, folks, making a few announcements here. First of all, I'm going to be on Rumble. I'm going to start a Rumble channel, and we're going to be heading over there. I'm going to put the first 2 episodes over there as well. Kind of make that the main channel on Rumble. I will still be posting to YouTube. Okay? Again, this one was a little get things ready because life does get in the way, but hey, next thing, I'm gonna have this put up and I'll make a video on that. And like I said, I found a place for a decently priced Lee pace setter, which is good. Powders, got that covered too. As soon as those get in, I'll be able to buy that. And bullets as well. Okay, so right now we've got a problem in the reloading world, is that your powders and your primers and your bullets are all kind of like, they're really hard to get a hold of right now. Shout outs to Eric Cortina. Thank you very much. Learned a lot from him. Again, as always, Johnny's Reloading Bench, thank you so very much for your inspiration. Thank you so very much for your wisdom. Bolt Action Reloader, again, thank you so very much. Folks, I thank you. I thank you for everything. All right? I'm going to go finish my day. You have a good one. Bye.